Okay, now it's in order. So we're starting. Kishorji has not yet joined. Hari Om, everybody. So welcome to this 13th edition of 13th session of this 2022 Srimad Bhagavad Gita Parayan and Satsang. Today we will have Kishorji from Sindhi Association as our welcome address and the guest of honor for today. And he is not yet joined. I think he should be joining anytime soon. And we will have the talk for the session will be by Balaji. Balaji has already joined. So without much ado, let's get started with the invocation prayers and then the welcome address. Over to Sri Hariji for the invocation, please.
Oh. 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 Sahana bhavatu, sahanau bhunattu, saha viryam karavavahai, tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shuklambaradharam Vishnu Shashivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasanavadanam Dhyayet Sarva Vignopashantaye Saraswati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarupini Vidyarambham Karishyami Siddhir Bhavatu Me Sada Sarva Mangala Mangalye Shive Sarvartha Sadhike Sharanye Triambake Gauri Narayani Namostute Vasudeva Sutan Devam Kausachanura Mardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishna Vande Jagadgurum Krishna Vande Jagadgurum.
Hari Om. Thanks. Thank you, Sri Hariji. Now I don't know whether Kushir.
Yeah, he has just joined.
Is joined already? Okay, great.
Yeah.
Let me just make him as the guest of as the co-host. Yeah. So now it's time for a welcome address, and we welcome Kishorji as the guest of honor for today for welcoming us to this session 13 of this online Gita Parayan. So over to Kishorji.
Thank you so much. My humblest apology for being late because my computer was jammed. Anyway, Hari Om and Suprabhatam, Hare Krishna. With the blessings of Bhagwan Sri Krishna, I am privileged to welcome you all to today's online Srimad Bhagavad Gita Parayan and Satsang. I'm aware it is your immense desire to learn and to go deeper into the teachings of Bhagavad Gita, and that has brought you all to attend this event on the weekend, despite your pressing schedule and family commitments. I'm fully aware that our Puja Guruji Balaji Ramaswamy Ji, who shall be explaining to us the slokas from chapter 13 and part from chapter 14 as well. My heartfelt thanks to Mr. Srinivasan for introducing me to this forum. In chapter 13, we have one of the most significant, most illuminating, most inspiring, and most mystical proportions of the Bhagavad Gita, wherein Bhagwan gives us a wonderful revealing insight into the human individual. The highest and the best knowledge grants us divine wisdom and spiritual illuminations that lead us to divine beatitude. It is a metaphysics of man, the unknown. The immortal soul with its physical embodiment is the main theme of chapter 13. I have no doubt the explanation by Guruji shall quench your desire for knowledge. I wish you all great learning and seek the blessings of Bhagavan Krishna and for you and your family and the society. Hare Krishna. Thank you all.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Kishorji. Kishorji is the president of Singapore Sindhi Association, and Singapore Sindhi Association has been a long-term associate of our Gita Jayanti Singapore. And thank you so much for your nice words. And we will get back to our normal chanting sequences. And before that, I will just disable the. I will mute all. I will not. I mean, people will not be able to unmute yourself because there may be disturbances. So we will once the whole session is over, you can unmute yourself and ask questions to the speaker for today. So now we will get back to our normal sequence and. Yeah. Okay. So Gita Dhyanam is the invocatory versus invocation of the Bhagavad Gita itself. And this will be done for today. It will be done by Umaji. Umaji, please.
Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha. Atha Dhyanam. Om Parthaya Pradhibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Gratitam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitamritavarshini Bhagavati Ashtadashadhyayini Ambatvamanusandadhami Bhagavat Gite Bhavatveshini Namostu te Vyasa Vishala Buddhe Kullaravindayata Patra Netra Yena Tvaya Bharata Taila Purnaha Prajvalito Jnanamaya Pradipaha Prapanna Parijataya Totra Vetraikapanaye Jnanamudraya Krishnaya Gita-mritadukhe Namaha Vasudeva Sutan Devam Kamsa-chanuramardhanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Bhishma-dronatata Jayatra-jala Gandhara Nilotpala Shalyagragavati Kripena Vakani Karnena Velakula Ashvathama Vikarna Ghora Makara Duryodhana Vartini Sotirna Khalu Pandavai Rananati Kaivartaha Keshavaha Parasharyavacha Saroja Mamalam Gitartha Gandhotkatam Nanakyanaka Kesharam Harikada Sambhodana Bhotitam Loke Sajjana Shatpatairakaha Pepiyamanam Mutha Bhuyad Bharata Pankajam Kalimalap Tadvansi Shreyase Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangulanghayate Girim Yatkripatamaham Vande Paramananda Madhavam Yam Brahma Varunendra Rudra Marutaha Stunvanti Divyaistavaihi Vedai Sangha Padagramopanishadaihi Gayanti Yam Samagaha Dhyanavasthitattatena Manasa Pashyanti Yan Yoginaha Yasyantanna Vidussura Suraganaha देवाय तस्मै नमः देवाय तस्मै नमः
Hari Om. Thank you, Maji, for those beautiful invocatory verses. Now we move over to the actual session for today, the Gita Parayan, where we will cover chapter 13, full, that is verses 1 to 34, and then chapter 14, the first 8 verses. And also, please pay attention to the meanings of the verses which are given at the, in the slides which are following from here. And also, please note that in chapter 13, there are the very first verse, that is by Arjuna Vacha, will not be chanted today because it is not part of the standard, I would say, the Gita Press version or from Shankar Bhashya version. So we will not be chanting that today. But anyway, it is included here just for reference purposes. And then we will start with the first verse, that is Sri Bhagavan Vaja onwards. So we will start with this. So now over to our chanters, and it will be started with Sindhuji and repeated by Rajitaji. Sindhuji.
Atha त्रयोदशोऽध्यायः क्षेत्रक्षेत्रज्ञविभागयोगः श्रीभगवानुवाच
श्रीभगवानुवाच
इदं शरीरं कौन्तेय
इदं शरीरं कौन्तेय
क्षेत्रमित्यभिधीयते
क्षेत्रमित्यभिधीयते
एतद्यो वेत्ति तं प्राहुः
एतद्यो वेत्ति तं प्राहुः
क्षेत्रज्ञ इति तद्विदः
क्षेत्रज्ञ इति तद्विदः
श्रीभगवानुवाच इदं शरीरं कौन्तेय क्षेत्रमित्यभिधीयते एतद्यो वेत्ति तं प्राहुः क्षेत्रज्ञ इति तद्विदः
श्रीभगवानुवाच इदं शरीरं कौन्तेय क्षेत्रमित्यभिधीयते एतद्यो वेत्ति तं प्राहुः क्षेत्रज्ञ इति तद्विदः
क्षेत्रज्ञं चापि मां विद्धि
क्षेत्रज्ञं चापि मां विद्धि
सर्वक्षेत्रेषु भारत
सर्वक्षेत्रेषु भारत
क्षेत्रक्षेत्रज्ञयोर्ज्ञानम्
क्षेत्रक्षेत्रज्ञयोर्ज्ञानम्
यत्तज्ज्ञानं मतं मम
यत्तज्ज्ञानं मतं मम
क्षेत्रज्ञं चापि मां विद्धि सर्वक्षेत्रेषु भारत क्षेत्रक्षेत्रज्ञयोर्ज्ञानं यत्तज्ज्ञानं मतं मम
क्षेत्रज्ञं चापि मां विद्धि सर्वक्षेत्रेषु भारत क्षेत्रक्षेत्रज्ञयोर्ज्ञानं यत्तज्ज्ञानं मतं मम
तत्क्षेत्रं यच्च यादृक्
तत्क्षेत्रं यच्च यादृक्
यद्विकारि यतश्च यत्
यद्विकारि यतश्च यत्
स च यो यत्प्रभावश्च
स च यो यत्प्रभावश्च
तत्समासेन मे शृणु
तत्समासेन मे शृणु
तत्क्षेत्रं यच्च यादृक् यद्विकारि यतश्च यत् स च यो यत्प्रभावश्च तत्समासेन मे शृणु
तत्क्षेत्रं यच्च यादृक् यद्विकारि यतश्च यत् स च यो यत्प्रभावश्च तत्समासेन मे शृणु
ऋषिभिर्बहुधा गीतम्
ऋषिभिर्बहुधा गीतम्
छन्दोभिर्विविधैः पृथक्
छन्दोभिर्विविधैः पृथक्
ब्रह्मसूत्रपदैश्चैव
ब्रह्मसूत्रपदैश्चैव
हेतुमद्भिर्विनिश्चितैः
हेतुमद्भिर्विनिश्चितैः
ऋषिभिर्बहुधा गीतम् छन्दोभिर्विविधैः पृथक् ब्रह्मसूत्रपदैश्चैव हेतुमद्भिर्विनिश्चितैः
ऋषिभिर्बहुधा गीतम् छन्दोभिर्विविधैः पृथक् ब्रह्मसूत्रपदैश्चैव हेतुमद्भिर्विनिश्चितैः
महाभूतान्यहङ्कारः
महाभूतान्यहङ्कारः
बुद्धिरव्यक्तमेव च
बुद्धिरव्यक्तमेव च
इन्द्रियाणि दशैकञ्च
इन्द्रियाणि दशैकञ्च
पञ्चचेन्द्रियगोचराः
पञ्चचेन्द्रियगोचराः
महाभूतान्यहङ्कारः बुद्धिरव्यक्तमेव च इन्द्रियाणि दशैकञ्च पञ्चचेन्द्रियगोचराः
महाभूतान्यहङ्कारः बुद्धिरव्यक्तमेव च इन्द्रियाणि दशैकञ्च पञ्चचेन्द्रियगोचराः
इच्छाद्वेषः सुखं दुःखम्
इच्छाद्वेषः सुखं दुःखम्
सङ्घातश्चेतना धृतिः
सङ्घातश्चेतना धृतिः
एतत्क्षेत्रं समासेन
एतत् क्षेत्रं समासेन
सविकारमुदाहृतम्
सविकारमुदाहृतम्
इच्छाद्वेषः सुखं दुःखं सङ्घातश्चेतना धृतिः एतत्क्षेत्रं समासेन सविकारमुदाहृतम्
इच्छाद्वेषः सुखं दुःखम् सङ्घातश्चेतना धृतिः एतत् क्षेत्रं समासेन सविकारमुदाहृतम् अमानित्वमदम्भित्वम्
अमानित्वमदम्भित्वम्
अहिंसा क्षान्तिरार्जवम्
अहिंसा क्षान्तिरार्जवम्
आचार्योपासनौ शौचम्
आचार्योपासनौ शौचम्
स्थैर्यमात्मविनिग्रहः
धैर्यमात्मविनिग्रहः
अमानित्वमदम्भित्वम् अहिंसा क्षान्तिरार्जवम् आचार्योपासनौ शौचम् स्थैर्यमात्मविनिग्रहः
अमानित्वमदम्भित्वम् अहिंसा क्षान्तिरार्जवम् आचार्योपासनौ शौचम् स्थैर्यमात्मविनिग्रहः
इन्द्रियार्थेषु वैराग्यम्
इन्द्रियार्थेषु वैराग्यम्
अनहङ्कार एव च
अनहङ्कार एव च
जन्म मृत्युजरा व्याधि दुःखदोषानुदर्शनम्
जन्म मृत्युजरा व्याधि दुःखदोषानुदर्शनम्
इन्द्रियार्थेषु वैराग्यम् अनहङ्कार एव च जन्म मृत्युजरा व्याधि दुःखदोषानुदर्शनम्
इन्द्रियार्थेषु वैराग्यम् अनहङ्कार एव च जन्म मृत्युजरा व्याधि दुःखदोषानुदर्शनम्
असक्तिरनभिष्वङ्गः
असक्तिरनभिष्वङ्गः
पुत्रदारगृहादिषु
पुत्रदारगृहादिषु
नित्यं च समचित्तत्वम्
नित्यं च समचित्तत्वम्
इष्टानिष्टोपपत्तिषु
इष्टानिष्टोपपत्तिषु
असक्तिरनभिष्वङ्गः पुत्रदारगृहादिषु नित्यं च समचित्तत्वम् इष्टानिष्टोपपत्तिषु
असक्तिरनभिष्वङ्गः पुत्रदारगृहादिषु नित्यं च समचित्तत्वम् इष्टानिष्टोपपत्तिषु
मयि चानन्ययोगेन
मयि चानन्ययोगेन
भक्तिरव्यभिचारिणी
भक्तिरव्यभिचारिणी
विविक्तदेशसेवित्वम्
विविक्तदेशसेवित्वम्
अरतिर्जनसंसदि
अरतिर्जनसंसदि
मयि चानन्ययोगेन भक्तिरव्यभिचारिणी विविक्तदेशसेवित्वम् अरतिर्जनसंसदि
मयि चानन्ययोगेन भक्तिरव्यभिचारिणी विविक्तदेशसेवित्वम् अरतिर्जनसंसदि
अध्यात्मज्ञाननित्यत्वम्
अध्यात्मज्ञाननित्यत्वम्
तत्त्वज्ञानार्थदर्शनम्
तत्त्वज्ञानार्थदर्शनम्
एतज्ज्ञानमिति प्रोक्तम्
एतज्ज्ञानमिति प्रोक्तम्
अज्ञानं यदतोऽन्यथा
अज्ञानं यदतोऽन्यथा
अध्यात्मज्ञाननित्यत्वम् तत्त्वज्ञानार्थदर्शनम् एतज्ज्ञानमिति प्रोक्तम् अज्ञानं यदतोऽन्यथा
अध्यात्मज्ञाननित्यत्वम् तत्त्वज्ञानार्थदर्शनम् एतज्ज्ञानमिति प्रोक्तम् अज्ञानं यदतोऽन्यथा
ज्ञेयं यत्तत् प्रवक्ष्यामि
ज्ञेयं यत्तत् प्रवक्ष्यामि
यज्ञात्वामृतमश्नुते
यज्ञात्वामृतमश्नुते
अनादिमत्परं ब्रह्म
अनादिमत्परं ब्रह्म
न सत्तन्नासदुच्यते
न सत्तन्नासदुच्यते
ज्ञेयं यत्तत् प्रवक्ष्यामि यज्ञात्वामृतमश्नुते अनादिमत्परं ब्रह्म न सत्तन्नासदुच्यते
ज्ञेयं यत्तत् प्रवक्ष्यामि यज्ञात्वामृतमश्नुते अनादिमत्परं ब्रह्म न सत्तन्नासदुच्यते सर्वतः पाणिपादन्तत्
सर्वतः पाणिपादन्तत्
सर्वतोक्षिशिरोमुखम्
सर्वतोक्षिशिरोमुखम्
सर्वतः श्रुतिमल्लोके
सर्वतः श्रुतिमल्लोके
सर्वमावृत्य तिष्ठति
सर्वमावृत्य तिष्ठति
सर्वतः पाणिपादन्तत् सर्वतोक्षिशिरोमुखम् सर्वतः श्रुतिमल्लोके सर्वमावृत्य तिष्ठति
सर्वतः पाणिपादं तत् सर्वतोक्षिशिरोमुखं सर्वतः श्रुतिमल्लोके सर्वमावृत्य तिष्ठति
सर्वेन्द्रियगुणाभासं
सर्वेन्द्रियगुणाभासं
सर्वेन्द्रियविवर्जितम्
सर्वेन्द्रियविवर्जितम्
असक्तं सर्वभृच्चैव
असक्तं सर्वभृच्चैव
निर्गुणं गुणभोक्तृ च
निर्गुणं गुणभोक्तृ च
सर्वेन्द्रियगुणाभासं सर्वेन्द्रियविवर्जितम् असक्तं सर्वभृच्चैव निर्गुणं गुणभोक्तृ च
सर्वेन्द्रियगुणाभासं सर्वेन्द्रियविवर्जितम् असक्तं सर्वभृच्चैव निर्गुणं गुणभोक्तृ च
बहिरन्तश्च भूतानाम्
बहिरन्तश्च भूतानाम्
अचरञ्चरमेव च
अचरञ्चरमेव च
सूक्ष्मत्वात् तदविज्ञेयम्
सूक्ष्मत्वात् तदविज्ञेयम्
दूरस्थं चान्तिके च तत्
दूरस्थं चान्तिके च तत्
बहिरन्तश्च भूतानाम् अचरञ्चरमेव च सूक्ष्मत्वात् तदविज्ञेयम् दूरस्थं चान्तिके च तत्
बहिरन्तश्च भूतानाम् अचरञ्चरमेव च सूक्ष्मत्वात् तदविज्ञेयम् दूरस्थं चान्तिके च तत्
अविभक्तं च भूतेषु
अविभक्तं च भूतेषु
विभक्तमिव च स्थितम्
विभक्तमिव च स्थितम्
भूतभर्तृ च तज्ज्ञेयम्
भूतभर्तृ च तज्ज्ञेयम्
ग्रसिष्णुप्रभविष्णु च
ग्रसिष्णुप्रभविष्णु च
अविभक्तं च भूतेषु विभक्तमिव च स्थितम् भूतभर्तृ च तज्ज्ञेयम् ग्रसिष्णुप्रभविष्णु च
अविभक्तं च भूतेषु विभक्तमिव च स्थितम् भूतभर्तृ च तज्ज्ञेयम् ग्रसिष्णुप्रभविष्णु च
ज्योतिषामपि तज्ज्योतिः
ज्योतिषामपि तज्ज्योतिः
तमसः परमुच्यते
तमसः परमुच्यते
ज्ञानं ज्ञेयं ज्ञानगम्यम्
ज्ञानं ज्ञेयं ज्ञानगम्यम्
हृदि सर्वस्य विष्ठितम्
हृदि सर्वस्य विष्ठितम्
ज्योतिषामपि तज्ज्योतिः तमसः परमुच्यते ज्ञानं ज्ञेयं ज्ञानगम्यम् हृदि सर्वस्य विष्ठितम्
ज्योतिषामपि तज्ज्योतिः तमसः परमुच्यते ज्ञानं ज्ञेयं ज्ञानगम्यम् हृदि सर्वस्य विष्ठितम्
इति क्षेत्रं तथा ज्ञानम्
इति क्षेत्रं तथा ज्ञानम्
ज्ञेयं चोक्तं समासतः
ज्ञेयं चोक्तं समासतः
मद्भक्त एतद्विज्ञाय
मद्भक्त एतद्विज्ञाय
मद्भावायोपपद्यते
मद्भावायोपपद्यते
इति क्षेत्रं तथा ज्ञानम् ज्ञेयं चोक्तं समासतः मद्भक्त एतद्विज्ञाय मद्भावायोपपद्यते
इति क्षेत्रं तथा ज्ञानं ज्ञेयं चोक्तं समासतः मद्भक्त एतद्विज्ञाय मद्भावायोपपद्यते प्रकृतिं पुरुषं चैव
प्रकृतिं पुरुषं चैव
विध्यनादि उभावपि
विध्यनादि उभावपि
विकारांश्च गुणांश्चैव
विकारांश्च गुणांश्चैव
विद्धि प्रकृतिसम्भवान्
विद्धि प्रकृतिसम्भवान्
प्रकृतिं पुरुषं चैव विध्यनादि उभावपि विकारांश्च गुणांश्चैव विद्धि प्रकृतिसम्भवान्
प्रकृतिं पुरुषं चैव विध्यनादि उभावपि विकारांश्च गुणांश्चैव विद्धि प्रकृतिसम्भवान्
कार्यकरणकर्तृत्वे
कार्यकरणकर्तृत्वे
हेतुः प्रकृतिरुच्यते
हेतुः प्रकृतिरुच्यते
पुरुषः सुखदुःखानां
पुरुषः सुखदुःखानां
भोक्तृत्वे हेतुरुच्यते
भोक्तृत्वे हेतुरुच्यते
कार्यकरणकर्तृत्वे हेतुः प्रकृतिरुच्यते पुरुषः सुखदुःखानां भोक्तृत्वे हेतुरुच्यते
कार्यकरणकर्तृत्वे हेतुः प्रकृतिरुच्यते पुरुषः सुखदुःखानां भोक्तृत्वे हेतुरुच्यते
पुरुषः प्रकृतिस्थो हि
पुरुषः प्रकृतिस्थो हि
भुङ्क्ते प्रकृतिजान् गुणान्
भुङ्क्ते प्रकृतिजान् गुणान्
कारणं गुणसङ्गोऽस्य
कारणं गुणसङ्गोऽस्य
सदसद्यो निजन्मसु
सदसद्यो निजन्मसु
पुरुषः प्रकृतिस्थो हि भुङ्क्ते प्रकृतिजान् गुणान् कारणं गुणसङ्गोऽस्य सदसद्यो निजन्मसु
पुरुषः प्रकृतिस्थो हि भुङ्क्ते प्रकृतिजान् गुणान् कारणं गुणसङ्गोऽस्य सदसद्यो निजन्मसु
उपद्रष्टानुमन्ता च
उपद्रष्टानुमन्ता च
भर्ता भोक्ता महेश्वरः
भर्ता भोक्ता महेश्वरः
परमात्मेति चाप्युक्तः
परमात्मेति चाप्युक्तः
देहेऽस्मिन् पुरुषः परः
देहेऽस्मिन् पुरुषः परः
उपद्रष्टानुमन्ता च भर्ता भोक्ता महेश्वरः परमात्मेति चाप्युक्तः देहेऽस्मिन् पुरुषः परः
उपद्रष्टानुमन्ता च भर्ता भोक्ता महेश्वरः परमात्मेति चाप्युक्तः देहेऽस्मिन् पुरुषः परः
य एवं वेत्ति पुरुषम्
य एवं वेत्ति पुरुषं
प्रकृतिं च गुणैः सह
प्रकृतिं च गुणैः सह
सर्वथा वर्तमानोऽपि
सर्वथा वर्तमानोऽपि
न स भूयोऽभिजायते
न स भूयोऽभिजायते
य एवं वेत्ति पुरुषं प्रकृतिं च गुणैः सह सर्वथा वर्तमानोऽपि न स भूयोऽभिजायते
य एवं वेत्ति पुरुषं प्रकृतिं च गुणैः सह सर्वथा वर्तमानोऽपि न स भूयोऽभिजायते
ध्यानेनात्मनि पश्यन्ति
ध्यानेनात्मनि पश्यन्ति
केचिदात्मानमात्मना
केचिदात्मानमात्मना
अन्ये साङ्ख्येन योगेन
अन्ये साङ्ख्येन योगेन
कर्मयोगेन चापरे
कर्मयोगेन चापरे
ध्यानेनात्मनि पश्यन्ति केचिदात्मानमात्मना अन्ये साङ्ख्येन योगेन कर्मयोगेन चापरे
ध्यानेनात्मनि पश्यन्ति केचिदात्मानमात्मना अन्ये साङ्ख्येन योगेन कर्मयोगेन चापरे अन्ये त्वेवमजानन्तः
अन्ये त्वेवमजानन्तः
श्रुत्वान्येभ्य उपासते
श्रुत्वान्येभ्य उपासते
तेऽपि चातितरन्त्येव
तेऽपि चातितरन्त्येव
मृत्युं श्रुतिपरायणाः
मृत्युं श्रुतिपरायणाः
अन्ये त्वेवमजानन्तः श्रुत्वान्येभ्य उपासते तेऽपि चातितरन्त्येव मृत्युं श्रुतिपरायणाः
अन्ये त्वेवमजानन्तः श्रुत्वान्येभ्य उपासते तेऽपि चातितरन्त्येव मृत्युं श्रुतिपरायणाः
यावत् सञ्जायते किञ्चित्
यावत् सञ्जायते किञ्चित्
सत्त्वं स्थावरजङ्गमम्
सत्त्वं स्थावरजङ्गमम्
क्षेत्रक्षेत्रज्ञसंयोगात्
क्षेत्रक्षेत्रज्ञसंयोगात्
तद्विद्धि भरतर्षभ
तद्विद्धि भरतर्षभ
यावत् सञ्जायते किञ्चित् सत्त्वं स्थावरजङ्गमम् क्षेत्रक्षेत्रज्ञसंयोगात् तद्विद्धि भरतर्षभ
यावत् सञ्जायते किञ्चित् सत्त्वं स्थावरजङ्गमम् क्षेत्रक्षेत्रज्ञसंयोगात् तद्विद्धि भरतर्षभ
समौ सर्वेषु भूतेषु
समौ सर्वेषु भूतेषु
तिष्ठन्तं परमेश्वरम्
तिष्ठन्तं परमेश्वरम्
विनश्यत्स्व विनश्यन्तम्
विनश्यत्स्व विनश्यन्तम्
यः पश्यति स पश्यति
यः पश्यति स पश्यति
समौ सर्वेषु भूतेषु तिष्ठन्तं परमेश्वरम् विनश्यत्स्व विनश्यन्तम् यः पश्यति स पश्यति
समौ सर्वेषु भूतेषु तिष्ठन्तं परमेश्वरम् विनश्यत्स्व विनश्यन्तम् यः पश्यति स पश्यति
समं पश्यन् हि सर्वत्र
समं पश्यन् हि सर्वत्र
समवस्थितमीश्वरम्
समवस्थितमीश्वरम्
न हि नस्त्यात्मनात्मानं
न हि नस्त्यात्मनात्मानं
ततो याति पराङ्गतिम्
ततो याति पराङ्गतिम्
समं पश्यन् हि सर्वत्र समवस्थितमीश्वरम् न हि नस्त्यात्मनात्मानं ततो याति पराङ्गतिम्
समं पश्यन् हि सर्वत्र समवस्थितमीश्वरम् न हि नस्त्यात्मनात्मानं ततो याति पराङ्गतिम्
प्रकृत्यैव च कर्माणि
प्रकृत्यैव च कर्माणि
क्रियमाणानि सर्वशः
क्रियमाणानि सर्वशः
यः पश्यति तथात्मानम्
यः पश्यति तथात्मानम्
अकर्तारं च पश्यति
अकर्तारं स पश्यति
प्रकृत्यैव च कर्माणि क्रियमाणानि सर्वशः यः पश्यति तथात्मानम् अकर्तारं स पश्यति
प्रकृत्यैव च कर्माणि क्रियमाणानि सर्वशः यः पश्यति तथात्मानम् अकर्तारं स पश्यति
यदा भूतपृथग्भावम्
यदा भूतपृथग्भावम्
एकस्थमनुपश्यति तत एव च विस्तारम् ब्रह्म सम्पद्यते तदा यदा भूतपृथग्भावम् एकस्थमनुपश्यति तत एव च विस्तारम् ब्रह्म सम्पद्यते तदा
यदा भूतपृथग्भावम् एकस्थमनुपश्यति तत एव च विस्तारम् ब्रह्म सम्पद्यते तदा अनादित्वान् निर्गुणत्वात् परमात्मायमव्ययः शरीरस्थोऽपि कौन्तेय न करोति न लिप्यते अनादित्वान् निर्गुणत्वात् परमात्मायमव्ययः शरीरस्थोऽपि कौन्तेय न करोति न लिप्यते
अनादित्वान् निर्गुणत्वात् परमात्मायमव्ययः शरीरस्थोऽपि कौन्तेय न करोति न लिप्यते
यथा सर्वगतं सौक्ष्म्यात् आकाशन्नोपलिप्यते सर्वत्रावस्थितो देहे तथात्मानोपलिप्यते
यथा सर्वगतं सौक्ष्म्यात् आकाशन्नोपलिप्यते सर्वत्रावस्थितो देहे तथात्मानोपलिप्यते
यथा सर्वगतं सौक्ष्म्यात् आकाशन्नोपलिप्यते सर्वत्रावस्थितो देहे तथात्मानोपलिप्यते
यथा
प्रकाशयत्येकः
कृत्स्नं लोकमिमौ रविः क्षेत्रं क्षेत्री तथा कृत्स्नं प्रकाशयति भारत यथा प्रकाशयत्येकः कृत्स्नं लोकमिमौ रविः क्षेत्रं क्षेत्री तथा कृत्स्नं प्रकाशयति भारत
यथा प्रकाशयत्येकः कृत्स्नं लोकमिमौ रविः क्षेत्रं क्षेत्री तथा कृत्स्नं प्रकाशयति भारत क्षेत्रक्षेत्रज्ञयोरेवम् अन्तरज्ञानचक्षुषा भूतप्रकृतिमोक्षं च
ये विदुर्यान्ति ते परम् क्षेत्रक्षेत्रज्ञयोरेवम् अन्तरज्ञानचक्षुषा भूतप्रकृतिमोक्षं च ये विदुर्यान्ति ते परम्
क्षेत्रक्षेत्रज्ञयोरेवम् अन्तरज्ञानचक्षुषा भूतप्रकृतिमोक्षं च ये विदुर्यान्ति ते परम्।
ॐ तत्सत् इति श्रीमद्भगवद्गीतासु उपनिषत्सु ब्रह्मविद्यायां योगशास्त्रे श्रीकृष्णार्जुनसंवादे क्षेत्रक्षेत्रज्ञविभागयोगो नाम त्रयोदशोऽध्यायः। अथ चतुर्दशोऽध्यायः गुणत्रयविभागयोगः। श्रीभगवानुवाच
श्रीभगवानुवाच
परं भूयः प्रवक्ष्यामि
परं भूयः प्रवक्ष्यामि
ज्ञानानाज्ञानमुत्तमम्
ज्ञानानाज्ञानमुत्तमम्
यज्ञात्वा मुनयः सर्वे
यज्ञात्वा मुनयः सर्वे
परां सिद्धिमितो गताः।
परां सिद्धिमितो गताः।
श्रीभगवानुवाच परं भूयः प्रवक्ष्यामि ज्ञानानाज्ञानमुत्तमम् यज्ञात्वा मुनयः सर्वे परां सिद्धिमितो गताः।
श्रीभगवानुवाच परं भूयः प्रवक्ष्यामि ज्ञानानाज्ञानमुत्तमम् यज्ञात्वा मुनयः सर्वे परां सिद्धिमितो गताः।
इदं ज्ञानमुपाश्रित्य मम साधर्म्यमागताः।
मम साधर्म्यमागताः।
सर्गेऽपि नोपजायन्ते
सर्गेऽपि नोपजायन्ते
प्रलयेन व्यथन्ति च।
प्रलयेन व्यथन्ति च।
इदं ज्ञानमुपाश्रित्य मम साधर्म्यमागताः। सर्गेऽपि नोपजायन्ते प्रलयेन व्यथन्ति च।
इदं ज्ञानमुपाश्रित्य मम साधर्म्यमागताः सर्गेऽपि नोपजायन्ते प्रलयेन व्यथन्ति च। मम योनिर्महद्ब्रह्म
मम योनिर्महद्ब्रह्म
तस्मिन् गर्भं दधाम्यहम्।
तस्मिन् गर्भं दधाम्यहम्।
सम्भवः सर्वभूतानां
सम्भवः सर्वभूतानां
ततो भवति भारत।
ततो भवति भारत।
मम योनिर्महद्ब्रह्म तस्मिन् गर्भं दधाम्यहम्। सम्भवः सर्वभूतानां ततो भवति भारत।
मम योनिर्महद्ब्रह्म तस्मिन् गर्भं दधाम्यहम्। सम्भवः सर्वभूतानां ततो भवति भारत।
सर्वयोनिषु कौन्तेय
सर्वयोनिषु कौन्तेय
मूर्तयः सम्भवन्ति याः।
मूर्तयः सम्भवन्ति याः।
तासां ब्रह्म महद्योनिः
तासां ब्रह्म महद्योनिः
अहं बीजप्रदः पिता।
अहं बीजप्रदः पिता।
सर्वयोनिषु कौन्तेय मूर्तयः सम्भवन्ति याः। तासां ब्रह्म महद्योनिः अहं बीजप्रदः पिता।
सर्वयोनिषु कौन्तेय मूर्तयः सम्भवन्ति याः। तासां ब्रह्म महद्योनिः अहं बीजप्रदः पिता।
सत्त्वं रजस्तम इति
सत्त्वं रजस्तम इति
गुणाः प्रकृतिसम्भवाः
गुणाः प्रकृतिसम्भवाः
निबध्नन्ति महाबाहो
निबध्नन्ति महाबाहो
देहे देहिनमव्ययम्
देहे देहिनमव्ययम्
सत्त्वं रजस्तम इति गुणाः प्रकृतिसम्भवाः निबध्नन्ति महाबाहो देहे देहिनमव्ययम्
सत्त्वं रजस्तम इति गुणाः प्रकृतिसम्भवाः निबध्नन्ति महाबाहो देहे देहिनमव्ययम्
तत्र सत्त्वं निर्मलत्वात्
तत्र सत्त्वं निर्मलत्वात्
प्रकाशकमनामयम्
प्रकाशकमनामयम्
सुखसङ्गेन बध्नाति
सुखसङ्गेन बध्नाति
ज्ञानसङ्गेन चानघ
ज्ञानसङ्गेन चानघ
तत्र सत्त्वं निर्मलत्वात् प्रकाशकमनामयम् सुखसङ्गेन बध्नाति ज्ञानसङ्गेन चानघ
तत्र सत्त्वं निर्मलत्वात् प्रकाशकमनामयम् सुखसङ्गेन बध्नाति ज्ञानसङ्गेन चानघ
रजो रागात्मकं विद्धि
रजो रागात्मकं विद्धि
तृष्णासङ्गसमुद्भवम्
तृष्णासङ्गसमुद्भवम्
तन्निबध्नाति कौन्तेय
तन्निबध्नाति कौन्तेय
कर्मसङ्गेन देहिनम्
कर्मसङ्गेन देहिनम्
रजो रागात्मकं विद्धि तृष्णासङ्गसमुद्भवम् तन्निबध्नाति कौन्तेय कर्मसङ्गेन देहिनम्
रजो रागात्मकं विद्धि तृष्णासङ्गसमुद्भवम् तन्निबध्नाति कौन्तेय कर्मसङ्गेन देहिनम्
तमस्त्वज्ञानजं विद्धि
तमस्त्वज्ञानजं विद्धि
मोहनं सर्वदेहिनाम्
मोहनौ सर्वदेहिनाम्
प्रमादालस्य निद्राभिः
प्रमादालस्य निद्राभिः
तन्निबध्नाति भारत
तन्निबध्नाति भारत
तमस्त्वज्ञानजं विद्धि मोहनं सर्वदेहिनाम् प्रमादालस्य निद्राभिः तन्निबध्नाति भारत
तमस्त्वज्ञानजं विद्धि मोहनौ सर्वदेहिनां प्रमादालस्य निद्राभिः तन्निबध्नाति भारत.
Hari Om. Thank you so much to all the wonderful chanters, beautifully chanted. The meanings of the verses given in the earlier slides are from the various great Gita commentators, and you get it in, abbreviated below. SC stands for Swami Chimayanandaji, Swami Dayanandaji, Swami Gambhiranandaji, George Feuerstein, Swami Vireshwarananda, Ekanath Ishwaran, Dr. Radhakrishnan, Swami Rama, Yuvan Mascaro, Dr. A.G. Krishnavajayar, Swami Mukundananda, etc. And as you can see, these are actually cover various traditions as well as Western, as well as Eastern, and academic and devotional kinds of traditions of interpreting the Bhagavad Gita. So to understand the Bhagavad Gita from different angles would be the best way to learn the Bhagavad Gita. Now we move over to the Gita Mahatmyam, and this will be chanted by Veenaji.
Om Atha Gita Mahatmyam Gita Shastramidam Punyam Yah Pathet Prayatah Puman विष्णोः पदमवाप्नोति भयशोकादिवर्जितः गीताध्ययनशीलस्य प्राणायामपरस्य च नैव सन्ति हि पापानि पूर्वजन्मकृतानि च मलनिर्मोचनं पुंसां जलस्नानन्दिने दिने सकृद्गीताभसि स्नानं संसारमलनाशनं गीता सुगीता कर्तव्या किमन्यै शस्त्रविस्तरैः या स्वयं पद्मनाभस्य मुखपद्माद्विनिसृता भारतामृतसर्वस्वं विष्णोर्वक्त्राद्विनिसृतं गीता गङ्गोदकं पीत्वा पुनर्जन्म न विद्यते सर्वोपनिषदो गावः दोग्धा गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्सः सुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत् एकं शास्त्रं देवकी पुत्रगीतम् एको देवो देवकी पुत्र एव एको मन्त्रस्तस्य नामानि यानि कर्माप्येकं तस्य देवस्य सेवा ॐ तत्सत् हरि ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः हरि ओम सर्वं कृष्णार्पणमस्तु.
Hari Om. Thank you so much for that beautiful chanting, Veena-ji. Wonderfully chanted the Gita Mahatmya. Now we move over to the Gita talk for this session 13. So this will be given by Balaji, and even last year Balaji's talk was very wonderfully received by so many people. So now we are eagerly wanting to listen to Balaji. So over to Balaji. Balaji, you are, I think, made already the co-host, so you should be able to take the screen.
Okay, thank you. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, perfect. Yeah.
Okay. Om Sadashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om Tvameva Mata Cha Pita Tvameva Bandhuscha Saka Tvameva Vidya Dravinam Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Shri Dakshinamurti Sudeshikendram Dvaipayanam Sutrakritam Munindram Sri Shankaram Bhashyakritam Yatindram Maddeshi Kanchapi Namami Vidyai. Om Namo Brahmadibhyo Brahma Vidya Sampradaya Kartrubhyo Vamsarishibhyo Mahatbhyo Namo Gurubhyah Sarvopaplavarahita Prajnana Ganah Pratyakarto Brahmaivahamasmi. Om Prapanna Parijataya Totra Vetraikapanaye Jnana Mudraya Krishnaya Gita Mrtaduhe Namaha. Pranams everyone. I just wanted to clarify first thing. When the introduction was made, I was told I'm a Guruji. I'm not a Guruji. I'm just a student. I am still learning, and I'm just sharing whatever I'm learning. So if there are any mistakes, please forgive me. Whatever I am able to convey properly, all that credit goes to my gurus and acharyas. So today I will be sharing something on chapter 13, Kshetra Kshetrajna Vibhaga Yoga. First, before going to Kshetra Kshetrajna Vibhaga Yoga, which is chapter 13, this is the beginning of the Charama Shatkam, the final 6 chapters. Bhagavan actually in the first 6 chapters had 3 topics, main topics that he covered. In the first Shatkam, he basically covered Karma Yoga as a sadhana. And then he also talked about Jiva Swarupam. And then Jiva Prayatna, which is a self-effort. That was the three main topics in the first 6 chapters. Then in the second 6, which is between 7 and 12, he had covered Upasana Yoga as a sadhana, and he talked about Ishvara Swarupam, the nature of Bhagavan. And then finally, Ishvara Anugraha, basically the prasada that we get from Ishvara. Now, 13th chapter is the beginning of the final Shatkam. And here, Bhagavan covers Jnana Yoga as one main topic. Jnana Yoga, as you know, is the direct sadhana meant to understand or discover oneself as Brahman or Atma. In other words, to own up to Aham Brahmasmi. The second topic that he also covers in this final 6 chapters is Jiva Ishvara Swarupa Aikyam, the essential oneness between Jiva and Ishvara. When we say Tattvamasi, the Tvam is Jiva Swarupam, the Tat is Ishvara Swarupam, the Asi is basically the Jiva Ishvara Swarupa Aikyam. One thing we have to note is that there is no event called Jivatma Paramatma merger. Here, when we say Aikyam, it means dropping the misconception of separation or dropping the wrong notion of difference that seemingly exists. So this is actually a silent intellectual pursuit, which is born out of the understanding of the fact that I am never away from Ishvara. So this is Jiva Ishvara Swarupa Aikyam. The third main topic that he covers in this final 6 chapters is Sadgunas. Sadgunas are the noble virtues that are required to be able to absorb this teaching. In other words, we can also call as, in Vedantic terms, Sadhana Chatushtayam. So this is the what Bhagavan covers. And especially in chapter 13, 14, and 15, the first 3 chapters, he is basically bringing out a lot of those concepts from Upanishads. And therefore, we always say, Sarvo Upanishado Gavo Dogta Gopala Nandanaha. So all these 3 chapters mainly focus on Jnana Yoga. So with that kind of introduction, we'll go into the Kshetra Kshetrajna Vibhaga Yoga. This is a very important chapter from a philosophical angle because Bhagavan explains Atma here using a Drik Drishya Viveka, basically a subject-object differentiation. And he also employs the Neti Neti Nyaya, which is to say not this, not that. This is a popular method which is used in Shastras to arrive at our true nature, where we go on negating everything we experience. Apart from this explanation of Atma, Bhagavan in this chapter explains also the Sadguna, the virtues that are needed, and the discipline, the sadhanas to actually for the spiritual pursuit. And then finally, once we attain the jnana, attain moksha, what is the phalam, what is the benefit of such a knowledge? So he covers end to end, thus making it a complete chapter. It gives an end-to-end view of the entire pursuit, spiritual pursuit. So Shloka 0, that's why I would call it, basically because we also did not chant Arjuna's question. Many books have this Arjuna's question as the first shloka, so I'm going to call this a Shloka 0 here. So here Bhagavan, Arjuna basically asks a question and says, Prakritim Purusham Chaiva Kshetra Kshetra Me Evacha Etat Veditum Ichchami Jnanam Nyayam Cha Keshava. He basically asks a question, Bhagavan, please explain the meaning of these 6 terms. Prakriti, Purusha, Kshetram, Kshetrajna, Jnanam, and Nyayam. The explanation of these terms become the 13th chapter. And typically, these 6 terms actually can be reduced to only just 3, because Prakriti and Kshetram refer to the Anatma. Purusha, Kshetrajna, and Nyayam principles refer to Atma. And the Jnanam that is referred in this chapter refers to the values, the Sadgunas. So essentially, we need to discuss about these 3 topics. And Bhagavan actually starts in Shloka 1 and 2. He gives the explanation of Kshetrajna, But before giving the explanation of Kshetrajna, he says the body is Kshetram. Idam shariram kaunteya kshetram iti abhidiyate. He says this body is Kshetram, and the knower principle within this body is Kshetrajna. And not only that, he says that he is the knower principle that is present in all bodies. He is the knower principle, which is the Parabrahma Swarupa. Basically, he is indicating Jiva Ishvara Aikyam here. And then from slokas 3 to 6, the Kshetra Tattva, the Anatma Tattva, is further explained by Bhagavan. He initially praises this knowledge, says that this teaching has come through rishis, through a parampara. And then he says, with regards to Kshetram, whatever we experience and whatever can be experienced, all the drishya padartha, they will come under Anatma. So anything that I feel, I touch, I see, everything are all Anatma. So which means basically the entire universe comes under Anatma, because universe is an object of my experience. Not only the universe, even the body, all the bodies that I see, even not just all the bodies, even my own body, I am able to experience. And hence it is Anatma. And not just the body, the mind is also an object of experience. And hence my mind is also Anatma. So this is how he explains. Now the question next comes is, what is this nature of this Anatma? And Bhagavan basically gives three main qualities of this Anatma. One, it is Achetana Swarupa. Achetana Swarupa meaning insentient. It is a matter principle. It is a jadam. So, and it is made of Panchabhutas. So this Anatma is made of Panchabhutas, which is Akasha, Vayu, Apuha, Agnihi, and Prithvi. So this Panchabhutas. And this Anatma is also endowed with all properties. It's Sagunam. It is attributes, with attributes, and not just one or two attributes. It's got varieties of attributes, size, shape, color, mass, everything. All these are Anatma. And not only that, it is subject to change, modifications. It does not remain the same even for a moment. The mind is the best example for that. Our mind keeps changing. So it's Anatma. And therefore, Anatma is Achetanam, Anatma is Sagunam, Anatma is Savikaram. Now, we'll have to remember this, because when we come to Atma, the opposite of it will be Atma's characteristics. Now, when we discuss this, questions may arise in our mind. Is mind really a matter? Yes, mind is also a matter, and it is made of subtle matter. It is also a Jadam principle, and it is made of a combination of Panchabhutas only, except that it is made of Sukshma Panchabhutas, the subtle Panchabhutas. Now, next question might come is, but I do feel, I mean, the body seems to be sentient. After all, I can feel, I can touch. Yes, body seems to be sentient, but the sentiency of the body and the mind is borrowed. It is not its inherent nature. You know, just like when we keep a vessel over a stove, the vessel actually borrows the heat from the fire of the stove. So the heat is just temporary. And similarly, the sentiency of in the body is also temporary, and anything that is temporary will leave one day. So it is not its inherent nature. And when it leaves, that is when we call it as death. So what is death? When the sentiency leaves the body, we call that event as death. Now I'm going to go into the slokas 12 to 17. I'm not going to take from 7 to 11. 7 to 11, Bhagavan discusses about all the Sadgunas. We will see it at the end. Now we'll go to sloka number 12 to 17. Now here what happens is, what we have to understand is, a drishya anatma, anything that is an object of experience. If there is an object of an experience, it presupposes Drik Atma, which means if there is an object of experience, then there has to be a subject. So if the whole universe is Drishya Prapancha, it is an object of experience, then it means that there should be an experiencer subject behind it. This is called as Drik Drishya Viveka, which talks about two things. One, every object presupposes the existence of a subject, and a subject cannot be an object of experience. This example that we give is basically, if I see a photograph, then surely there should be a camera that should have existed. So if I just as an object, then there should be a subject. And we also know that the camera lens itself will not be able to take a photograph of itself. It will not be able to take a photograph of itself. So subject cannot be an object of experience. So this method, as I said, is a Drik Drishya Viveka. So which means if there is an Anatma, there has to be an Atma, and Atma can never experience itself. This is what we have to gain from here. And then here Bhagavan also uses, we have to note that every attribute that I experience belong to the object and not the subject. So if I see a red flower, the red belongs to the flower. The object of experience, the attribute that I experience belongs to the object and not to the subject. This is a very important concept to know, because in this method, what we do is, using this method, we arrive at our true nature. We go on negating everything we experience. Whatever we experience, we are not. We are not this, we are not that. It is called as Neti Neti method. Whatever I experience, I am not. With that, we arrive at what is Atma. What is Atma? Here Bhagavan explains using the Nyayam. He explains Nyayam in slokas 12 to 17. Nyayam, as I said, it's the same as Kshetrajna and Purusha. Both are Atma Tattva only. And remember, we said Anatma is Achetanam. It's a matter principle, Jadam, which means all the objects are Achetanam, which means the subject has to be Chetanam, the consciousness principle. And Bhagavan says, how does he explain Kshetrajna? He says, by which Paramatma we get the feeling in our body, by which Paramatma, if absent, the sense organs and the body will not have sentiency. That Paramatma Tattva, that which is independent of all bodies and on which all bodies are dependent, that Paramatma Tattva, that is Chetanam, and that Atma, we have to own it ourselves. That Atma is me. What are the features of this Atma? So Swamiji had given 5 features of Atma. Atma, the consciousness, is not part, product, or property of the body. Atma, so it is not part of the body, it is not a product of the body, it is not a property of the body. It is an independent entity, it is different from the body, but it pervades the body and it also enlivens the body. And it is not limited by the boundaries of the body. It is present everywhere. It is Sarvagataha. And this Atma will continue to exist even after the body dies. Even when the sentiency leaves the body, the sentiency is there. The consciousness principle is there. Just that we will not be able to, that Atma will not be able to transact in this world, because the medium, the body medium, is not there anymore. So these are the features of the Atma Tattva. Now, what is the benefit of knowing this Atma Tattva? All this Jnanam, Nyayam, all these things, when we listen, Kshetrajna, Bhagavan clearly explains that in Shloka 18, he says, only a Bhakta who knows these Atma, Anatma principles, this knowledge of self, Ishvara, and all this Anatma, he will attain my nature. Basically, he says he attains my nature. And not only that, in Shloka 23, he says he is not born again. So which means when he says that person attains my nature, it is again what we are saying is Jiva Ishvara. Aikyam is again brought in here in Shloka 18. So that Atma is me and that Atma is also Ishvara. So with this, we covered Anatma and Atma until Shloka 17. Now from Shloka 18 is the basically the Jiva Ishvara Aikyam. From Shloka 19 to 23, Bhagavan basically takes Prakriti and Purusha together. Prakriti, as you know, is Anatma. Purusha is basically the Atma Tattva. And here he says, Prakriti refers to Maya. Prakriti refers to Maya. Kshetram that we discussed is the manifest version of Prakriti. Kshetram is the manifest version of Prakriti or Maya. So basically, Maya and Prakriti are basically the manifest and unmanifest versions of the same thing. So we've already seen Anatma is Savikaram, constantly changing. So Anatma will go from manifest to unmanifest and from unmanifest to manifest. It keeps changing all the time. So these two conditions are called as Vyakta Avastha and Avyakta Avastha. Vyakta meaning manifest, Avyakta meaning unmanifest. We can also call them as Karya Avastha and Karana Avastha. Karya Avastha is basically, we can say, the effect, and the Karana Avastha is the cause. So it goes between cause and effect. And this Vyakta Avastha, the manifest, is what we see. The Prapancha is the manifest version of Maya. And the unmanifest version is basically called Maya, or we can say Prakriti. So the example that we have to use is basically the water changing to water vapor. Water is the Vyakta Avastha, the manifest condition, and vapor is the unmanifest condition, the Avyakta Vyavastha of water. So similarly, the cosmos, universe has Vyakta Avastha, which we experience now, and it is also called as Prapancha, we can say, and it has got an Avyakta Avastha, which is Maya. So here he started with this, and then he explains basically the Prakriti and Purusha together, and he says Prakriti is the cause of creation of all physical and subtle bodies. And he basically, the creation I have picked up from another chapter, but basically the Prakriti is the cause of the universe. And the Purusha is he explains Purusha as Upadrashta, Anumanta, Bharta, Bhokta. In Shlokas 19 to 23, he refers to Purusha as Upadrashta, Anumanta, Bharta, Bhokta. Basically, it is the proximate witness, it is the supporter of Prakriti, it is the sustainer of Prakriti, and it is the, he says experiencer, but we will have to see how does experiencer mean here. Basically, he says Purusha is said to be the cause of experience in pleasures and pains. As I said, the Anatma is Anadi principle. It is Achetanam, Savikaram, Sagunam, we saw. And the Atma is Chetanam, Nirvikaram, Nirguna. Now, when we say this Purusha is said to be the cause of experience of pleasures and pain, actually we have to, when we analyze, who is actually the person who is actually having this sorrow or experiencing this pain? It is whether the body or whether the Atma. If we ask that question, whether it is a body which is experiencing pain or pleasure, or whether it is the Atma which is experiencing pain or pleasure, the correct answer is it is the Jivatma. The Jivatma is the one who looks like he is in sorrow. The Jivatma is basically a combination of mind and Purusha. He is the one who looks like he is in sorrow. Actually, there is no sorrow according to Advaita. If we understand it clearly, it is all out of ignorance. We think that we are in sorrow. And why do we think we are in sorrow? Because of our attachment to the gunas, Maya's gunas. And therefore, it seems that we are in sorrow. So going after that Bhagavan in Shloka 32 and 33, he basically compares Atma Tattva with space and light. Basically, Akasha Tattva and Prakasha Tattva. If we look at it, Akasha is one. Surya Prakasha is also one. So Bhagavan says consciousness is also one. In the same way, consciousness is also one. And so it is Ekatvam. Then Akasha cannot move from one place to another. It cannot move from place to place. Objects move within space, but space itself does not move. In the same way, consciousness also does not move. So it is Achalam. And then Akasha, the space is indivisible. Although we may say that, okay, we construct something and we say the space we have divided, it is actually the space is not divided, because the moment we actually remove the walls, the space is only one space. It is just we have a different name for the space within and outside. So Akasha is indivisible, Prakasha is indivisible. In the same way, consciousness is also indivisible. So Akandaha. Then Akasha is everywhere, but it is not contaminated. It cannot be polluted. The light also cannot be contaminated. The light can fall in Ganga Jal as well as in garbage, but the light itself will not get contaminated or polluted. In the same way, consciousness also cannot be contaminated, and therefore Asangatvam. Then Akasha supports everything. Only within space everything happens. Similarly, the consciousness principle supports the matter principle. Atma supports Anatma, and therefore it is Sarvadaram. Finally, Prakasha illumines everything. In the same way, only because of this consciousness principle, things are known to us. We get this awareness because of the consciousness principle, the Atma Tattva. And therefore it is called as Sarva Prakasha. So these are the features of Atma. And when we see these features of Atma, it is not to be studied as a third person principle. We have to understand that Atma is me. I am that Atma. That is the Atma comparison that Bhagavan gave. Then I will go to the shloka number 7 to 11, where Bhagavan in the 5 shlokas explains the Sadhana Chatushtaya Sampatti. Sadhana Chatushtaya Sampatti, he basically talks about using the topic of Jnanam. He takes the topic of Jnanam and explains all the 20 virtues. These 20 virtues are basically the preparatory virtues. The preparatory virtues, basically the discrimination, dispassion, discipline, and desire, we can say, or Viveka, Vairagya, Shatka Sampatti, and Mumukshutvam. These 20 virtues put together, or these 4 have been expanded by Bhagavan into these 20 virtues. And he starts with Amanitvam, Adambitvam, Ahimsa, Kshanti, Arjavam, Acharyopasanam, Shaucham, Stairyam, Vinigraha. And there, Amanitvam basically means humility, not seeking this recognition. That is Amanitvam. Then he says Adambitvam. Amanitvam is the internal feeling, when Adambitvam is what we show outside. So Adambitvam is basically having simplicity or being non-pretentious. So Amanitvam is a feeling that we have to have. Adambitvam is basically we have to ensure that we do not show off. Adambitvam. Then Ahimsa. Ahimsa, not hurting others. When we say not hurting others, at all 3 levels, the body level, words level, as well as at the mind level. So at all 3 levels, not hurting others. Then Kshanti. Kshanti has basically 2 meanings. One is Titiksha and the other one is Shama. Titiksha means, again, it can be forbearance or endurance, we can say. Titiksha also means patience. So Titiksha is basically forbearance, endurance, patience, and also forgiveness. Forgiveness as a quality we have to imbibe. This is Shanti. Then Arjavam. Arjavam is basically straightforwardness. Straightforwardness, when we say, where my words, deeds, and mind are aligned. All the 3 are aligned. That is called as straightforwardness or uprightness. The opposite of Arjavam is basically Vakram. We have used this term, Vakram. So opposite of straightforwardness is vakram. If you see even the straightforwardness, the subset of straightforwardness is basically satyam. When the words and deeds are aligned, it's called a satyam. So actually satyam is a subset of arjava. Then acharyopasanam, guru seva, doing seva to guru. Saucham, when we say saucham, it means purity. It means purity, both external purity, things around me, the possessions that I have, the clothes, the place around me has to be pure. Not only that, the body has to be pure, which is also external purity. Then talk about internal purity, which is the purity that has to be attained at the mind level, at the intellect level. So that is saucham. Then stairyam. Stairyam is basically steadfastness. I have to be steadfast in whatever I take up. Then Atma Vinigraha. Atma Vinigraha, here Atma refers to the body mind. And he says discipline of body and mind. Basically we can say Shamaha Damaha, Atma Vinigraha. Then Vairagyam. Vairagyam is basically dispassion on all sensory pleasures. Remember, Vairagyam is not about hatred, it's not about aversion, it is about not getting affected by things, whether they are there or not there. That is Vairagyam. Then Anahankaraha. Anahankaraha means without having any garva. Basically non-identification with this body. That is Anahankaraha. Then Dukkha Dosha Anudarshanam. Dukkha Dosha Anudarshanam. Basically we have to have this, Anudarshanam means seeing it repeatedly. What we have to see repeatedly? The dosha. What is the dosha? Dosha of dukkham. Where is the dukkham? He says the entire world. This world is it's misery. So we have to ponder over this misery of samsara again and again, and by that we gain dispassion, basically vairagya. Then asaktihi. Asaktihi basically means absence of any attachment. Asaktihi. Then anabhishwangaha. Anabhishwangaha means this absence of sense of me, mine, mineness. We can say use the word mineness. And where exactly? With regards to putra dhara griha, he says. Putra dhara griha means putra means children, my children, and then my spouse. And then griha means house, but we can include all the possessions, my everything. Have absence of the sense of mindness. Then samachittatvam. Samachittatvam means equipoise, constant equipoise of mind when a situation is favorable or when the situation is unfavorable. At both places, we're having a constant equipoise of mind. Then he says bhakti. Bhakti, and bhakti he says not normal bhakti. He gives some additional qualifications to the bhakti. He says it has to be complete bhakti and it has to be unswerving bhakti. Unswerving bhakti or devotion is needed. Then vivikta desha sevitvam. Vivikta desha sevitvam is seeking solitude. I should be seeking solitude willingly, and that place should be devoid of asaucham. It should be clean and it should be devoid of bhaya. I should not get fear by going alone, and it should be devoid of people. So I should seek solitude. It's a very important sadhana that one has to do. And then arati jana samsadi. Arati jana samsadi means not desiring people's company. Not desiring people's company, basically to avoid all this gossip on others, because sometimes gossip can actually make us get attracted to people's company. So not desiring that. Then tattva jnanartha darshanam. Tattva jnanartha darshanam, bringing forth the benefit of this knowledge of the truth. So if once I get this jnana, once I get this moksha, what is the benefit I'm going to get? And seeing that repeatedly again and again is tattva jnanartha darshana. Then Adhyatma Jnana Nityatvam. Basically doing Atma Vichara, constantly doing Atma Vichara, doing Jnana Yoga. So these are the 20 values that Bhagavan brings up. Bhagavan also talks about values and he takes an entire chapter 16 where he talks about Daivi Asuri Sampad as well. That will be more like a continuation from here. And some of the values will also be repeated there. Each value we can talk about hours for each one of them, but we will just move on. So then Bhagavan in Shloka 24 and 25, he basically gives the sadhanas. He presents the 5 stages to attain this knowledge. And he says, Karma Yoga, Upasanam, Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam. Karma Yoga is the first stage. It is the first stage to remove the impurities of our mind, Mala Nivritti, we can say. And what is the benefit? We attain a pure mind. Then the second one is Upasanam. Basically meditating on Ishvara, Saguna Ishvara with form. And then this Upasana is basically to remove all the restlessness of the mind, the extrovertedness of the mind. The mind keeps going out to actually control and discipline this mind. Or we can say Vikshepa Nivritti. And by doing that, what happens? The mind becomes calm, tranquil, you can say a focused mind. We get a focused mind by Upasana. Then Shravanam. Shravanam is basically consistent, systematic study of scriptures. We'll have to consistently and systematically study, and not just for overnight. It has to be done over a period of time. It has to be done over a period of time, and it has to be done under the guidance of a competent acharya. And what is the benefit of this? It is to remove ignorance. Basically, we will get the ajnana nivritti. Once we get that ajnana nivritti, I will get this aham brahmasmi knowledge. And once I get this knowledge, I'll still have some doubts. See, most of my doubts will be cleared, but then when I start reflecting on it, I'll get some of the doubts. And if some are there, we have to raise those questions and get them answered, and get that is called as samshaya nivritti. Samshaya nivritti, removal of doubt. So I will get a doubtless knowledge with conviction as mananam. That is mananam. And then what happens? The final stage is where I have to change the perspective of self. The body orientation is the most powerful vasana. You know, we have been living for crores of janma thinking that I am this body. Now this orientation has to change. And this is the most powerful vasana. And therefore we'll have to spend some time to come out of that habit. To come out of that habit of thinking that I am this body. So we have to keep reinforcing that I am not the body, but I am functioning through this body, through this medium. This is a shift of this self-perspective. And by doing that, we not only change the opinion about ourselves, we also change the opinion about this world. So basically, the Viparita Bhava Nivritti, we say. Viparita Bhava Nivritti, removing this habitual thinking pattern. And at the end of it, I get an internalized knowledge. I get a knowledge which becomes my personality. So this is basically the final stage where we can say the person or we have attained moksha. So these are the sadhanas. And Bhagavan says, you know, a sadhaka may be in any of these steps. In any of these steps, but there will be, but he has to move through these 5 stages anyway, and finally attain moksha. So after this, now what happens once I get moksha? What is the phalam? What is the benefit? Bhagavan explains that in Shloka 26 to 34. And he explains, he gives a few benefits of this jnana. The first one is basically sarvatra samadarshanam. So when I go to a beach, instead of different waves, I see one underlying water. Sarvatra samadarshanam. Or if I go to a jewelry shop, instead of seeing different ornaments, I see one underlying gold. So I keep these words like, bangle, rings, chain. These are all needed for transactions. But in and through these transactions, I will have the gold darshanam. It is called a samadarshanam. So in and through this anatma, I will see one underlying atma. And what is the benefit of this? The practical benefit of this is basically I get freedom from raga and dvesha. They are the two main primary problems of samsara. Because there is nobody else, there is no raga, there is no dvesha. I see only one. So raga dvesha abhavaha. So freedom from attachment, freedom from aversion. That is the first benefit, first phalam. The second one is amritatva prapti. See, when amritatva prapti means basically immortality. See, when I took myself as this anatma, when I take myself to be this body, I conclude I am mortal because I have a date of birth. This body has a date of birth. This body has a date of death. Body is mortal. But when I know I am this atma, now I can claim I am immortal. So the question is whether am I immortal or mortal? I am always immortal. But what I lack is the knowledge that I am already immortal. So amritatva prapti is the second benefit. Then akartrutva abhoktrutva prapti. So I come to know that I am neither the karta nor the bhokta. I am neither the doer nor the enjoyer. But in my presence, matter is interacting. This body is a matter, this mind is a matter, another body is a matter, another mind is also a matter. So in my presence, the Atma's presence, all these are interacting. So all these changes belong to the matter. And I, the consciousness, I am like sunlight. I illumine everything, but I am not tainted by anything. Then the final one is Brahmatvam. Brahmatvam means basically limitlessness. When I consider in the ocean, when the wave considers as a wave, then it is limited. But once when the wave thinks that it is the water, it is also the water, it can claim that it is everywhere in the ocean. So in the same way, we can experience limitlessness once we undertake, or once we say, basically once we claim that we are the Atma. So these are the benefits. And what is the benefit? These benefits are basically nothing but, in simple language, we can say it is Jivan Mukti. So Jivan Mukti is the benefit of this knowledge. The thing about all other disciplines of knowledge, whatever we study, all this apara vidya, physics, chemistry, biology, whatever, medicine, whatever, it will not make any fundamental difference. Whereas this knowledge, it makes a crucial difference because it takes me out of samsara and gives me mukti. It takes me out of bondage and liberates me. So this is basically the benefit or jnana phalam. So with that, Bhagavan basically completes chapter 13. Then I would probably will give you a quick overview of chapter 14, and then the next speaker would probably go in detail about this. Basically, in chapter 13, Bhagavan explains the Atma Tattva using Drigdrishya Viveka. He employed Drigdrishya Viveka to explain Atma. In 14, he will use Saguna Nirguna Vibhaga. So subject-orient differentiation as against attribute-less differentiation. Saguna means with attributes, Nirguna means without attributes. And Bhagavan in this chapter deals with these three gunas, Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. And he will say that these three gunas are the stepping stones through which it will take us to a gunatita. So basically through these gunas, gunatraya dwara, we attain moksha. Therefore it is called as gunatraya vibhaga yoga. And in this chapter, Bhagavan not only explains Atma using Saguna Nirguna Vibhaga, apart from that, Bhagavan also explains the 3 gunas in detail, sattva, rajas, tamas. He explains, and then he gives a guidance on how to transcend these gunas and become a gunatita. Gunatita is nothing but a mukta purusha, basically a jnani. And he explains, once a person becomes gunatita, what is the indication? How do we identify a gunatita? How does he conduct himself? That is also explained in chapter 14. Finally, in this chapter, he also touches upon creation again, and he again gives a Brahma Lakshanam and Jnana Phalam again making this chapter also a complete chapter by itself. So 13, 14, and 15 are clearly important chapters. Each one is gives an end-to-end view of the Vedanta. So with that, I conclude my talk. Thank you so much. Sarvam Krishnarpanamastu. Sri Krishnaya Paramatmane Namaha. Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shri Guru Namaha. Hari Om. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Balaji. Let me just spotlight you to the others so that everybody can see you. Yeah. Okay, great, wonderful. Thank you for a beautiful talk, as like last time, with beautifully illustrated PowerPoint slides. And I think you've taken a lot of effort for creating this. So thank you so much for that. And I think it really gives a lot of, the visual representations make it easier for people to understand. And another important thing is, I thought some of these your fonts are a bit too small, so I had great difficulty in reading those your PowerPoint slides. I think next time, I hope you should make it slightly bigger fonts.
Oh, I see. Okay, next time I'll make sure.
Yeah, because I had to really be very deep to figure out what was being written there.
Or I split the slides so that it becomes easier.
Yeah, I think I can increase the number of slides also. That would be a bit better. Yeah. Okay, thank you once again, and please hang on till the end of the session so that people can ask questions to you regarding today's, because I think this chapter is a very, very important chapter. If you look at Shankara Bhashyam, there is Bhagavad Gita spends a lot of words and a lot of verses in his commentary on this chapter. So it's a very important chapter. Okay, so let's get back to our session for today. Sorry. Okay, so that was Balaji Ramaswamy and our speaker for today. Now, next in our for today is the mini Gita quiz. So this will be conducted by Ananya as usual, and I will just spotlight Ananya for a minute so that everybody can see Ananya, and then. So this is Ananya, and Ananya is. Ananya is actually a student of and she was a wonderful chanter herself, and she has won prizes in our Gita chanting competition several times. She is now presently a university student pursuing double degree in computer science and business with a full scholarship from the Ministry of National Development. And outside academics, she has been a Bharatanatyam dancer for the last maybe 15 years or so. And she's also now choreographing and teaching dance herself. And in addition to her interest in Bhagavad Gita and other spiritual matters. So now I will show these slides so that you can guide everybody through that.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so this will be the mini Gita quiz, the session 13. So as usual, there are two types of questions, one to be answered in a couple or few words, and the second type to be answered in a sentence of less than 20 words. The questions in this quizzes will be based on the verses chanted in this specific session or the main chapter dealt with in this session. So questions here are based on the Srimad Bhagavad Gita chapter 13 only, portions chanted in this session. The questions for each session will be explained in the respective sessions, and you can always see the sessions videos at the Gita Jayanti Facebook page or the Gita Jayanti YouTube channel. Answers to the questions and name of top correct responses will be presented at future sessions. The questions need to be answered through the online links given in the next slide. Please note that there will be no real-time question and answer session here. This is purely an online quiz. So for this one, it will be the bottommost link, which is tinyurl.com/Gita mini quiz S13. So Gita mini quiz S13. Moving on to the questions. We'll do the type 1 questions first, which are to be answered in a couple or few words. In 13.2, so verse 2, how does Krishna define jnana? Next question. In verse 21, what does Krishna say is the cause of birth in good and evil wombs? In verse 27, who really sees even when all think they are with their eyes? I think, yeah. In verse 32, what is the simile used to indicate that the Atma is never tainted by anything? Lastly, in verse 34, what kinds of eyes are required to know and distinguish between Kshetra and Kshetrajna? Now we'll do the type 2 kind of questions, which you have to answer in 20 words or lesser. First, how do the verses 5 and 6 define the field of Kshetra? In verse 7, what are the 9 qualities that are listed by Krishna that constitute jnana? In verse 8 and 9, there are 6 more qualities listed by Bhagavan that form jnana. List them. In verse 10 and 11, there are 5 more qualities listed by Bhagavan that form jnana. List them as well. Lastly, in verses 7 to 11, they describe jnana or knowledge. Subsequently, Krishna describes jnaya or that which is to be known. What is it and what are its main qualities listed in verses 12 to 17? That brings us to the end of the mini Gita quiz for this session. Thank you, everyone.
There is some question by somebody. Yeah, okay. Thank you so much, Ananya, for guiding us through this quiz for this segment for today. And now we move over to the next final session, final part of today's session. These are actually going to be the concluding mantras. This will be done by Srihariji. Over to Srihariji.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Dhanvantaramurtaye Amritakalashahastaya Sarvamaya Vinashanaya Trailokyanataya Mahavishnave Swaha. Om Achyutaya Namaha. Om Anantaya Namaha. Om Govindaya Namaha. Om Achyutaya Namaha. Om Anantaya Namaha. Om Govindaya Namaha. Om Achyutaya Namaha. Om Anantaya Namaha. Om Govindaya Namaha. Om.
Two more times.
Vasudevasutan Devam Kausachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnau Vande Jagadgurum Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu Kayena vacha manasendriyarva buddhyatmana va prakrute svabhavat karomi yatyat sakalam parasmai narayaneti samarpayami. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Tatsat. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Oh.
Thank you so much, Sridhiji. Now comes to the final announcements regarding Gita Jayanti events. We have, as we have announced in earlier times, we have this Likhita Gita Samarpan program, which is a new initiative by the Gita Jayanti, where everybody can actually write the Bhagavad Gita in your own hands and submit it at the Mokshada Ekadashi Parayan Day on the 4th of December. So this will be you can write in your own script in your own language, and you can actually submit it the in a notebook and bring it to the Mokshada Ekadashi Parayan on the 4th of December at PGP Hall, where there'll be a vibration of the and keep it in front of the Lord, and then after the Parayan is over, you can take it back with all the vibrations from the session. So I think any Srinivas, you want to say anything more on this? And one more thing is sorry, I think I have to I will enable unmuting by everybody. Maybe I don't have the flyer. Yeah, if you want, you can unmute. Srinivas, you want to say something?
Okay. The host is not allowing to unmute. It says it's not.
And now we can hear you.
Yeah. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes. Can.
Okay. I think tomorrow we also have a art competition for the children.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Yeah. Sorry.
Okay. Though the audience here may not be eligible, but their family members and children will be eligible. So it is not too late to enroll. Please go to the website and enroll. Tomorrow it will be Vasudhaiva Kudumbakam. That's the theme of the competition, and it will be between 1 and 3:30 tomorrow at PGP Hall. So please register. And like I said somewhere, let's give a very tough time to the judges in making the choosing the first prize and second prizes. So
the winners.
Yeah, the winners. So more the numbers, the more tough time they will have. Thank you very much. It's not too late. Just act within today itself. Thank you. And Krishnamaji mentioned 13th chapter is a very important one. So I'd like to add that on 5th, 6th, 7th December, after the Moksha Parayan Day, the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of the 5th, 6th, 7th December, Swami Sarvapriyananda will be continuing the International Gita Forum, talking on chapter 13, Kshetra Kshetra Ke Vibhaga Yoga, and we'll also be concentrating on the 20 values system that just now Balaji enumerated in one single slide. He's going to talk about it. He said we can talk about hours and hours and about that, but unfortunately Swamiji's time is limited, so he's going to talk about maybe for 3 or 4 hours on the 3 days. So please do not miss the talk. Mark the days. From 3rd to 7th, you are engaged with Swami Sarvapriyananda ji and Gita, Moksha Desi Parayan. So stay tuned with the Gita Jayanti from 3rd to 7th December. We need your critical support. Thank you.
So far, we've been listening to Swamiji online only. So this is a very, very golden opportunity to meet him in person and listen to him in person at PGP Hall. So, and I think he has never traveled to the eastern side of India, right? So I think this
east of India is not traveled. So this will be the first time Gita Jayanti is privileged to bring him beyond the shores of India to the eastern side of globe. So another thing I would like to add that this also provides not only to listen to him in person, see him in live in person, it also gives an opportunity to ask him questions on the spot. So you can post your questions, and of course, subject to timings, Swamiji will try to answer as much as possible. So do not miss the opportunity to question him also, because our tradition believes that we have to question and then understand the answers and then accept it, not blind faith. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Srinivas. So this brings to the end of our session today, and the next session will be on the 1st of October, 2 weeks from today, and Saturday, same time, same place. So now we move over to we will stop sharing and request everybody to enable your videos so that we can take some snapshots. Could you kindly enable your videos, please, everybody? I think there are still people not. Could you enable your videos, please, if you don't mind, so that we can take some photographs. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. And now the field is open to the audience, and our speaker for today, Balaji, is available here, so he can clear all the doubts or questions or comments. So, anybody, any questions?
Jason, you are on mute. You are.
No, a basic question just to keep the discussions kickstart. On one part, Lord Krishna says ahimsa as one of the 20 values. On the other hand, he says yuddhasva. He says go and fight. So how do you relate these two?
I had the same question actually. Good question. Yeah. Good question. Yeah.
Okay. A value in terms of all the values, there are two types of values. One is samanyam, another one is vishesham. So everything, there is a samanyam as well as vishesham. Ahimsa is a samanya value that we will have to have irrespective of your gender or irrespective of your ashrama, irrespective of your varna. This is your samanya value that one should have, ahimsa. But every varna, every ashrama, both the genders have also something called a vishesha values. So if you look at it, ahimsa paramo dharma, it says ahimsa paramo dharma is it's a value that everybody has to have, especially if you are in the spiritual path, you will have to follow ahimsa. And in fact, for sannyasi, ahimsa is the topmost virtue that one should have. But if you look at a kshatriya has to protect the interests of the country, and therefore he will have to fight. And therefore, ahimsa is not. It will clash with this. The ahimsa, which is a samanya value, as against his vishesha value. And whenever the Shastra say, whenever there is a samanya vishesha value clash, the vishesha value takes precedence, number one. So in that case, ahimsa need not be found. But more importantly, whenever Bhagavan says yuddhyasva, in this, Shankaracharya clearly explains, wherever there is yuddhyasva, replace it with swadharma. So do not take that literal meaning there. Whenever there is Bhagavan says yuddhyasva to Arjuna, what we will have to include is yuddhyasva means do your swadharma, Arjuna. So swadharma for Arjuna, being a kshatriya, restoring dharma is his duty, and therefore he has to fight this war. And therefore, although it may be against the samanya dharma, or there could be a conflict with samanya dharma, he will have to still follow his vishesha dharma. So there are, as I said, samanya values or samanya duties, and vishesha dharma, which is specific duties for people. So that is how we have to see this, the whole thing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. See, Balaji, I have one question. See, basically, Atma is defined as totally nirguna, right? Of a nirguna nature. But what is really peculiar is that the characteristic of bhoktritva, bhoktritva is what actually leads to the transmigration and the further births and everything else, according to this chapter itself. So now I really find it difficult to understand this concept of bhoktritva for Atma. I mean, how is it that the Atma becomes an enjoyer or a experiencer of various gunas?
Okay, the Atma is nirguna. It does not experience. It is not capable of experiencing anything. But Atma, when it is reflected onto the mind, then it becomes an experiencer. the mind plus the reflected consciousness becomes Jivatma, which is what we call as Jivatma. And that Jivatma is capable of experiencing the, the pain and pleasures, the Sukham and Dukkham. So Atma by itself it does not do, but when it actually reflects to the mind or the body, then it becomes capable of experiencing. And when we say here Atma, the Jivatma is the one which is capable of experiencing, not the Atma itself, which means only when there is a reflection, you are able to experience things, or which you think you are experiencing. Because in Advaita Vedanta, remember, we are all under the illusion that we are Jivatmas, or we are this body-mind complex with this reflection. The body itself is only an instrument. We are only the Atma, and Atma itself is Nirguna and cannot experience anything. Hari Om.
See, I think, this, for example, let me just show you the thing that we presented actually right now. See here, 13, 20 and 21, Karyakarna kartritve hedu prakriti Purusha sukadukhanam bhuktartve heduruchade. Okay.
Yes.
And the next verse says Purusha prakrististo he bhunkte prakriti jangunan. All these are clearly saying that the Purusha is actually the bhokta.
Yes, yes.
So
yes,
it is not a reflection or anything like that.
Yes, but it is. That's why even in my slide I also mentioned that Purusha is the, I'll just share my slide also just in case.
Oh, sure, definitely.
So you're able to see this?
Yes.
So the Bhokta it's considered to be Purusha is Bhokta, but actually who is experiencing the sorrow or weight? It is the mind plus the Purusha, which is the Jivatma, which is actually experiencing the sorrow or pain or pleasures.
But mind is Prakriti, right? Mind is Prakriti, and yes. Purusha is apart from that. So mind is beside the issue. Here it says clearly that Purusha is the Bhokta. So that is what I'm not able to understand.
Yeah, but in terms of the explanation given by all the acharyas, especially with Advaita Vedanta Parama, when they do this in this parampara, they basically clearly say that it is the Purusha. When we say Purusha here, it is the Purusha that is actually reflected on the mind. The reflected Purusha on the mind is the cause. So it says Purusha, but the reflection is what we mean here. The reflected Purusha on the mind, which is the reflected consciousness, which is the one which thinks it is in sorrow. And he explains, the further he explains why does that happen also. He says it is because of the attachment on the Maya's gunas. That is the cause of this sorrow or pain. So he says, he again says, if you see further in Shloka 29, he says, see, all actions are done by Prakriti alone.
Correct. Exactly. Yes.
It is clearly, he says, all actions are done by Prakriti alone. And who sees the Purusha to be selfless, akartaram, actionless. So if there is no action, how can he be a Bhokta?
Yeah, that is exactly the question.
Yeah. So if Purusha is supposed to be actionless, then how can he be a Bhokta? Only a doer can be an enjoyer. So yes. That is why we have to understand here, when we say that he says Bhokta, it only means the reflected consciousness on the Prakriti that he is talking about. And therefore, we also says, why does that happen? Because of the in the womb, he will talk about, in Shloka number 30, Prakriti, Purusham Chaiva, where he will say basically the wound person who is actually attached to these gunas, and therefore he is the one who is actually
yeah, I think that is the beginning.
attachment. Okay, in the sloka number 21.
21. Yeah.
Yeah, Purusha experiences the gunas born of Prakriti, and attachment to the gunas is the cause of birth in superior and inferior wombs. So the attachment comes from the the reflected consciousness on Prakriti and not the Purusha by itself. Because that is why he is clarifying later, saying that the Purusha is actionless. That is, he definitely clears that the Purusha is actionless.
In 1321, he says Purusha Prakriti Stohi. I mean, sitting in the Prakriti, Purusha Bhunkte Prakritijan Gunan. So enjoys the gunas that are coming out of the Prakriti. So that is what is I mean, in 1321 says.
Residing in Prakriti.
Correct. Yes, exactly.
Because residing in Prakriti is basically the reflected consciousness.
Okay. No, not the real Purusha. I mean, not
the.
Residing
in Prakriti, the Purusha experiences, which means it is the reflected consciousness on Prakriti.
I see. Anybody else want to say anything?
Yeah, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa gives an example for that in his own way. I remember that. He says that Prakriti is a wife running around in the house, and Purusha is the husband sitting in a corner giving commands. So, actually, but without him, she is not going to act. But whatever she does doesn't affect him because he is not involved in that. So he says this is what the Prakriti Purusha Sambandha is like, a husband and a wife. I mean, not today's husband and wife. Those days we talk about it. So
in actually chapter 14, he will say, Bhagavan will say that Purusha is basically the father, the Prakriti is the mother.
Yeah.
And the womb, he will also explain about that in chapter 14. So anyway, yeah.
In fact, we chanted today. Yeah.
Yeah.
Rajesh is there? Rajesh, I think already left, is it? Oh, Rajesh is there. Rajesh, what is your comment?
Okay, I mean, first of all, congratulations to Balaji for such a scholarly and such a painstaking, presentation with so much of details. And as Krishnaji, you know me, I am so lazy and I'm so much away from the technicalities. So I try to follow the dictum that Bhakti Marg, you don't have to be knowledgeable. You just do bhakti. That's what Bhagavad Gita concludes. Sarva dharman parityajya mamekam sharanam braja. And even a person unlettered can approach the Lord. So that is my starting point. But when I started reading chapter 13, I was mesmerized. The very first question, Prakriti Purusham Chaiva, Chetra Chetragya Evacha, Veditum Ichchami, Jnanam Geyam Chakeshvam. So 6 questions are raised, 6 points are raised by Arjun, that what is Prakriti, what is Purush, what is Chetra, what is Chetragya, what is Gyan and what is Geyam. And all those points have been concluded very well. As we know, in spiritual laws, there are contradictory points. Like Krishnaji, you were mentioning in the previous session. First, Sri Krishna says in chapter 9, Maya idam tatam sarvam jagad vyakta murtina matasthani charva bhutani. I am dwelling in everyone. And in the next verse, he says, I am not dwelling in everyone. Right? Contradictory. So these contradictions are there aplenty in Bhagavad Gita everywhere. And that is why the spiritual science is so mystical. So, of course, the answer was, in the first instance, Sri Krishna is telling that I dwell in everyone dwells in me. He is talking about the Jiva Shakti and the Maya Shakti. And in the next verse, he is talking about Yog Maya Shakti, that I don't dwell in anyone because my Yog Maya Shakti keeps me away from all the Prakriti, all the gunas and all the material. So that's how the Bhagavad Gita is all about. So here also there are, seemingly contradictory stuff. But as I understood, I would consider when we enact our actions, the gunas are dominant. We are all under the influence of Maya. We are not God realized. So the gunas, the Prakriti, which are the repository of gunas, are dominant on us. And the soul is the approver, the witness. So for all these questions and answers which are being talked about, the chariot model comes to my mind, that the soul is the passenger, the intellect is the charioteer, the mind is the rope, and the senses are the horses. So we should apply that, and I think we will get an answer that what is the role of Prakriti, what is the role of the Jiva, which is the passenger in the chariot, and of course, Paramatma seated in our heart is also a witness to all that the Jivatma is doing. But what I really wanted to compliment all of you for arranging these sessions are to expose our audience to the magnificent knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. And I just wanted to share that when I read those 5 shlokas, Amanitvam, Adambitvam, Ahimsa, Shantir, Arjavam, Acharyam, Asthairyam, Atma Vinig, Acharyopashanam, Shaucham, Asthairyam, Atma Vinigraha, Indriyartheshu, Vairagyam, Anahankara, Evacha, Put, Janma Mrityu, Jara Vyadhi, Dukkha Doshanu Darshanam. So this, the Janma Mrityu, Jara Vyadhi, these are the defects in the material world. So that is why this is not our real home. This is a prison house. Our real home is outside the material existence. That point becomes so clear with this expression. Again, Shri Krishna says, Mai Chananya Yogena Bhaktir Abhya Vicharani Vikta Dese Sevitvam Arti Arjan Sanshashi Putra Dara Grihadishu. That is another expression, that clinging to the family, the children, and all this, if you consider that this is knowledge and everything else is not knowledge, Krishna ji, I must say I was blown away with that knowledge, that these 20 points are the knowledge. This is Gayam, this is Jnanam, this is, and the object of the knowledge, of course, Bhagavad Gita mentions so beautifully. So, and the last expression that, Adhyatma Jnana Nityatvam Tattva Jnanartha Darshanam Etaj Jnanam Iti Proktam Etaj Jnanam Iti Proktam Jnanam Anyato Datha Yatado Anyatha. That was the icing on the cake. As I mentioned, that everything which is contained in these 5 verses, the pieces of knowledge is the knowledge, and everything which is not there is not knowledge. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and actually, very interestingly, like you said, there is this, even in verse number 2, verse number 2 also talks about what is jnana and what is ajnana. There it says, let me just take that verse number 2. Here also it says what is jnana, and verse number 2 again he says what is jnana. So I can just show the screen again. See here, Kshetrajnam Chabimam Vidhi Sarva Kshetreshu Bharata Kshetra Kshetrajnor Jnanam Yatta Jnanam Matamava. He says that here that Jnanam is actually that which is enabling you to know what is Kshetra, Kshetrajna, and all that. So here he says this is Jnanam, and later on what he says is Jnanam again, in like you said, after that 11 or something, I think 13, 11 or 13 things here. 8 to 12, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. He lists out the 20 elements, and he says this is Gyan, and correct. Whatever is not contained is not Gyan. Correct. Yeah. So the word Jnana is being used differently at different places within the same chapter itself. So beautiful, but very nice. It is beautiful. It is, mind-blowing. This chapter 13, when I first started reading, it appeared so esoteric. The word itself, Chhatra, are so like, complex, but it has so much of beauty. Yeah, and as I said, Bhagavad Gita spends so much of his commentary on this chapter, and he writes so much on this chapter. So it's very, very important. Okay, so anybody else, any other question? I think we should actually listen to Sarvapriyananda ji's talk. That'll be very, very nice on this chapter. So Balaji,
thank you, everyone.
Want to say anything else? Otherwise, we can close the session for today.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone.
I think since there are no other thing, I think let me first express our sincere gratitude to Kishorji for being our guest of honor for today, and also to our Balaji, our wonderful speaker for today. Balaji, there is a lot of requests for your PowerPoint from many of the people in this thing today. So, like last time, we can actually, if you can share with me, I can send it out, blast it out to entire. I think there are about few hundred, 500 or 600 people or something are there, so I can send it to everybody if they like. They can read. So you can share with me, means I can send it out.
Okay.
And then we also like to express our gratitude to all the wonderful chanters and the Anindya who conducted the session for quiz today, and also all the participants for today's session. So thank you, everybody, and we offer everything as our offering to Lord Krishna's lotus feet. Thank you. Hari Om.
Thank you. Hari Om.
Thank you, KKG, for again coordinating the whole session. Thank you very much. And thanks also to Guruji Balaji, as somebody said, he was introduced.
Guruji Balaji.
No. I'm still a student. I'm not a Guruji. I'm a student. Yeah.
Potential Guruji la.
No. You are taking classes, so you're Guru to somebody. That's it. I mean, what is the level of Guru is different, but again, that's it. Okay.
Yeah, removal of ignorance is
you are sharing your knowledge. So if I keep it to yourself, you become Bhokta.
Hari Om. So see you everybody next session. Okay, bye-bye.
Hari Om.